Hey everyone. So I've just watched Mudbound, which came out in 2017, and it got a whole bunch of Oscar nominations. There's a lot of emotions I have about this, and I'm just gonna try to go from the top. I really thought it was good that they set it after World War II, or right after, and we get a little bit of information beforehand, but then the main effect of it is from World War II. Um, I'm trying to think of movies where, there was black people in World War II, and of course there was. There were people of all nationalities. How there were Native American code breakers. But they get written out of the textbooks that we read because whitewashing. So I thought it was really good. I thought that the connection between the two characters who had gone to war, one white, one black. Listen, I've never been to war, but I can only assume that that's kind of what happens. Is you have these related circumstances and these related hellish circumstances, and you just bond so much. It's just really upsetting, and the worst part is yes, this was based on a novel, and but you know that it actually happens. It sucks because, we're talking about someone who put their life on the line, who went to war, and, not just Ronzel, but the actual soldiers that were in the war, the actual black people, the people of color, the people of different ethnicities literally went to war to fight for America. And when they come back, America basically just gives them the middle finger. I really liked how there was kind of like the voiceover. I think that really fit in well with it. Kind of like that oral history. It gave it a lot more dinner table vibe, if you know what I mean. Like sometimes you'll read something and it'll have like childhood or child storybook vibe. Once upon a time, and then Shrek kicks down the door. But with this, it's kind of like an interchanging and almost a sermon, kind of. I don't know how I didn't see the KKK showing up. I really don't. This film literally took place in Louisiana, in 1945. Like, I was going to mention how Jonathan Banks, Pappy McCallan, how obviously he is the racist one, or the most racist one, I should say, and he's the one with connections to the KKK and whatever. And I was gonna mention how he kind of disappears for a good chunk of the film, and I thought it was bad writing. But then I realized it was good writing, because we're it's like Chekhov's gun. If you don't know about this, it's if you put a gun in the third act, you have to use it by the fifth, or the first act, and you have to use it by the third. Whatever. Basically, something is introduced, and you're going to use that later on. We are greeted by Pappy, saying he's not going to move for the black person. He's not going to acknowledge him. He calls him the N-word multiple times. And then we have the encounter in the convenience store. And then I think until the KKK scene, I think there's only like one little tiny scene, and it's not a racist one. Or it's a less racist one. Sorry, we kind of put him in the back of our brain, and then the moment that we see him, we're like, oh my god, shit's about to go down. Which obviously it did. I will say there were some times where I was a bit confused. The neighbors came over, but it wasn't one of the main families, and that was just a tiny bit confusing. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention enough. I will say, it is, I think, the slowest burn film that I've seen in a while. It's only just over 2 hours. The official runtime's like 2 hours 15. Credits start at like 2:08. And it's a really, really long burn. And it's also, I realized again, this is really good writing. There was one scene, and it was with Jamie and Ronzel, and they're in the truck, and they're just going back from their whatever the little hideaway. And just past Jamie, you see a truck coming. And I don't know if they did this on purpose or if it just happened to be, but that I was like, oh my god, someone's definitely gonna, Ronzel's gonna die at that point. But he didn't. And I thought they were gonna hit Jamie as well, but there was several times where I was like, this is the end of the movie. Or, the someone's death scene, and it just never happened until it did happen. But it's a really long 2 hours, but it needs to be seen. Here's the thing, this film's going to make you think. Especially if you are white. Especially if you are white, if you are racist, if you are whatever, it's going to make you think. Because, we like to say, oh, it was 1945, and even then, oh, it was 1960, and it was the time of Jim Crow, but, those times are over. No, they ain't. They're not over. That's really upsetting. It's really, really upsetting. And I was actually mad at the movie for a little bit because of the things that it was doing. And, almost immediately I did realize, though, that the reason that the movie is doing all these things is because it has to. It's just like To Kill a Mockingbird. The N-word is said a few times in there, and of course the whole story revolves around racism. And we don't like to acknowledge it. White people don't like to acknowledge racism. But it absolutely exists, and it's horrible that it exists. And we like to put a nice filter on it. We like to put a nice little hashtag with it, and all of a sudden we like to black out our Instagram, and all of a sudden we say, oh, Black lives do matter. But you have to wonder how many people actually truly believe that. And I'm not trying to stereotype here, but this happened in the South, notoriously down in the South. Maybe not as bad as in this movie, or maybe, I don't know. But there's a lot of things that lead us to believe that stuff like this happened years and years and years ago, when in reality it was, 60 years ago was the 60s. And I'm just throwing that out there as not that everything just happened in 1 year, but just kind of as, the decade. But even still, that's a lifetime. And I think what's going on now in the world is fantastic. It's not great that it has to happen, but I think it's fantastic that it's happening. And I think if we watch more movies like Mudbound that are, it's difficult. It's you sit there and it's not fun to realize, that there is racism in the world. It's just not fun. But it's also not fun to live in a world of racism. I said this in my little update that I gave at the beginning of the week that, I'm a white male. The only discrimination I think that I will ever face is for being gay, and even then I can present myself as straight. God forbid, I shouldn't have to need to, but if I ever did. And I there are people out there who, simply for who they are, not even sexual orientations, but literally the color of their skin. And we need to encourage more people to watch movies like this and then have a really serious discussion with them. Yeah, well, alright, that turned into a bit more of a rant than a review. But it was really, really good, this movie. I am going to give Mudbound 4.5 stars. I did mention there were just a few moments of confusion in there. But, you take those out, the movie still absolutely works perfectly. And the lessons in there are just... Humans need to be better. Especially the white people. That's the truth. Consider this your white person telling you to be better. If you're not already. Go sign some petitions. Go protest. Don't just take pictures of protests. Don't just post squares. But actually do some real good. Do some real influence. Yeah, so Mudbound gets 4.5 stars. It's on Netflix right now. It's a fantastic 2 hours. And if you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend it. Educate yourself. Watch some documentaries. I think that's... Sorry, I'm going to go a bit more ranty. One of the things I think that people do a lot is they'll watch a movie and they'll be, but it was about black people. And it's, it is, but it's not... It's either not accurate or it's very whitewashed, which again, we love doing the history. We need to do better. Watch some documentaries. I'm not saying you have to, spend an entire night watching documentaries about Emmett Till or about the KKK or about Rosa Parks or whatever it may be. Or about the little black girl who was the first to be in a non-segregated school, whose name I'm blanking on, and I'm going to put it on the screen because I cannot think of her name. And just remember that did not happen long ago. That happened within a lifetime. So go and educate yourself. And do not just ask someone, what was this? Don't just, go to your token black friend and say, hey, could you tell me a bit more about this? No. Do your own research. Watch some documentaries. Hell, pull up a Wikipedia page. Sure, that it's not the greatest, but it's a start. Okay. I think I've had enough now. I'm going to stop being... Actually, I'm not going to stop being angry, because we should never stop being angry. Alright. Take care. Want more? Check out chrismoviereviews.com. Follow me on Instagram and Reddit. Sign up for the newsletter and submit a user comment for me to read. And don't forget to like and subscribe.